Hello, my name is Lou,
And I'm Katie.
and you're listening to Files from the Other Side. This week, we're opening up the files on
Operation High Jump.
how high can you jump?
White man can't jump. What are you talking about?
Yeah, bitch, I'm not going anywhere but like maybe a foot forward.
Yeah. No. I can't get it. Like, I'm too ginger getting into a crouching position to go into the jumping. Like, it's not. I bet she needs to do more yoga. I can't.
Well, today we are covering Operation High Jump. But first, we have some details of updates to give you. Okay, Katie, you're really going to sit through this for the first time because it's been days of weirdness. And so it's like, to my brain, it's like, what do I even say? But I'm going to start us off and I'm just going to see how you receive it because I would like to know your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I don't remember if I told you any of this anyways. You might already know and you're like, whatever. We'll see. Okay?
I know about the dreams.
Okay, so it's the dreams, but there's like even more.
Okay.
I guess.
But there's more.
Yeah.
There's more since the 72 hours since we last talked.
Yeah. So I guess for the audiences, I had a weird series of dreams the other night, which included 3 reoccurring components. The first was just a reoccurring dream that I have since my father's death about 11 years ago. And it is a dream in which he comes back to life, and he tells us that he faked his death. And he faked his death for some XYZ reason. It's never the same dream ever, like the reason is the same. But the same reoccurring thing of like, yeah, I wasn't ever dead, but here's where I was the whole time anyways. So in this particular dream, he had told me that he left us because he started to be addicted to drugs, and that when my mom called around to the hospitals and couldn't find him, it was because he'd been transferred to a rehab center, and he just hid from us the entire time after that. So then it goes into another reoccurring dream in which there's this house, and it's just a reoccurring house. I'm not going to actually divulge the rest of the dream because this one doesn't matter. And then the third one also doesn't matter, but it's a reoccurring dream in which my ex comes back and says some bullshit to me that I don't want to hear, and I have to respond to it in some way. Well, I had like increasingly got like pissed off in the dream that when that third thing happened, when my ex came back and said some bullshit, I was like, this is some bullshit, I'm out. And I woke up.
None of this.
So I woke up, but like I'm really disoriented when I have really vivid and weird dreams like that. So my mom just so happened to be coming over to drop off a bed frame for me and Haley, and I called her to see where she was and like what time she was going to be there, whatever. I called her, and this woman, I told her my dreams. I was like, here's my dreams, Mom. These are just on my brain. I'm disoriented. I'm sorry. I'm not staying focused on our mission here. And she literally, like, she's like, you're going to shit your pants. And I was like, what? And she was like, dude, I had the same dream 4 nights ago before you and Haley had picked me up at the auto body shop to get a ride home. And I was like, what do you mean you had the same dream? And she's like, I had the dream that Dad had lied to us, faked his death, except he told her that he wanted to be with another family and had a baby.
That's so...
I know.
Wild.
Which is funny, actually, like in all actuality, because my dad could not produce at the time that he died. So that was never going to happen. Yeah. And also, like, my mom had the insane non-privilege to watch that man die. So she was like, I know this is not fucking real.
Yeah.
She was like, I watched that man die.
I know this is just in my brain, like, processing stress. Because, like, I remember talking about this on Saturday. I mean, like, I'm not ready, because even though your mom had the same dream, and you guys, like, we've talked about in our dream interpretations episode, like, there's some prophetic dreams that happen in your family, and I was like, I'm not ready, just because, like, so stressed, but you can psychically give each other, like, things. Like, my mom told me that it was it was the day after my parents told us they were getting divorced, and my mom had, like, brought chili up to my room to, like you know, like, lament with me and, like, chili, process our feelings. So she, like, brings chili into my room, And we were talking, and I was like, I don't know how we got into it, but we talked about how I like have this fear of like dying, of like somebody I love dying in a car crash, and the last thing I said to them wasn't like I love you or something like that. She was like, I must have psychically given that to you because I have the exact same fear, like of it's like specifically to like some sort of motor vehicle accident.
Yeah, which is what happened to my dad. It's scary. It's not. No. It's not a fear without placement in the real world, so I get it. But also, I guess, sorry,
the number that's one of the number one like you're more likely to get in an auto accident than like be eaten by a vampire or something. That was
definitely that, but
it was a bad example because vampires aren't necessarily real. Do we believe the vampire? Let's save that for theory of everything.
I thought we covered that already. I'm just kidding.
Like we just like talked about them in like folklore. I don't think we actually answered like, no, I don't believe vampires are real, except for energy vampires.
I think that vampires can be real. I guess I'll say that. I don't think they are a literal being that you can see in this world. I think it's one of those things where it exists in another world that affects us just the same as anything else. But
interesting.
I don't know that they manifest how we think they would. I think that the effects do, but not the being itself.
Interesting.
Anyways, so the weirdest thing about these dreams, though, is that when I asked my mom, I said, have you ever had this dream before? And she was like, no. And I was like, dude, I've been having it for 10, 11 years since that man died. And she was like, that's strange. I've never heard you talk about it. And she's never had that dream. She had this other prophetic dream up until he died and a little bit after he died, where somebody would come to her and tell her that they were going to take him away from her.
That's wild.
Yeah. And so she was like, it's kind of crazy that this dream comes to me the night before the morning where I pick her up. And it was funny because when I talked to Haley about this, she was like, I'm on the edge of my seat. Like, or you could tell my mom was on the edge of her seat trying to tell me something, but she like stayed silent the entire time. So me and Haley were just babbling back and forth, like not really paying attention to her, but
like
but she was like,
she'll participate when she wants to, kind of.
Yeah. But I asked her, I said, why didn't you tell me that? And she's like, I just didn't feel like I should. And I'm like, it's weird that she didn't, because then I had the dream and then we met talking about the dream. So it's not like she could have preemptively told me anything to influence my dreams moving forward.
Yeah.
So that's strange. And I did talk to my sister recently, but I didn't ask her about the dreams either.
Oh, okay.
Because I have a feeling that she hasn't had that dream. I have a feeling that she hasn't. I'm going to go over to her house tonight. I'll talk to her about it tonight.
Yeah.
But it was strange because I was like, I asked, basically my mom was like, do you think Dad's trying to tell us something? And I was like, well, I can ask. Like, the least I can do is try to spirit journey with him and see. So me and Cheyenne from Para Northwest get together the other night and we start talking. We're waxing about all these things, and especially about the documentary that is coming up in a couple months that we're going to film. It's a paranormal documentary about my family. And we got into it pretty heavily, but what ended up happening is we came home and we started an Estes method. Well, we started with a tarot reading because I wanted to see like if tarot could give us any answers. And tarot didn't give us much except for that, like it gave us, when it came to Jim, it gave us the Tower and the Sun, which felt very much like an ending and then a positive beginning. And so I didn't feel like there was much there except for like maybe just the tragedy has happened, so keep the sun in mind. I
was like, that's like the tragedy and the loss, but that there is like a new beginning, or like a new, like there's something, like you'll still
like something will come to light, right?
Something will come to light in that tragedy and that
and it's
loss.
Also very healing. Like the sun is a very healing card too, so
I love the sun.
But then the other parts of the tarot reading, I definitely got the message that I was in for, and I don't know how much I should really reveal this into a public space, but whatever.
If you want to reveal, you can reveal. Like this is our creative project. This is your space. This is a safe space. Guys, this is a safe space.
I
be cool, listeners.
I basically got this reading that said you're going to be spiritually tested. Your spiritual test is coming up. And you know what the fuck it said? It said the test is in integrity. It's in honor and it's in honesty. And I was like, okay, Zuko, that's my Zuko brain being like, oh fuck, like it's the Zuko test.
It's the Zuko test.
So I felt very much like, oh my god, like something is coming. And then we went into the Estes method, in which we tried to contact Jim specifically. And we have about 20 to 25 minutes of weird ass communication. I want to send this to you just to review, just to see if you get anything out of it.
Sure. I mean, I never knew your dad, but sounds like we had gotten along really well.
Oh yeah, he would have loved you. He would have.
I'm sure I would have loved him.
Yeah,
because you were saying, I remember one time I was talking about how much I love Zeke from Bob's Burgers, and you were like, "Oh, Zeke's like my dad," and I was like, "Yeah, Zeke's like legit one of my absolute top 3 favorite recurring characters." He's my number 1. Oh no, not the limo driver.
Yeah,
not
the limo driver.
Zeke, and then Mr. Fish Odor.
Okay. I see you. Okay.
I love being an eccentric millionaire, you know? Because I think one of my top 3 characters in Korra, and I love Avatar, is Barrick.
Yeah. I asked Haley because she was here when we did it, and she really felt like if anything had come through for her, it was that Jim was blessing our wedding, which I thought was very special. Aww. But there was a lot of other shit that came through that communication that felt very different than that. So I was like, in some part, I think that was relayed, because actually in one part of it, I go, "Hey, Haley, hello." And she goes, "What's up?" It's so funny.
Up, Jim?
Yeah, basically. And like, she very much thought it was a connection to her, but Cheyenne got a very different read, and I can't divulge that because it has to do with the documentary. I'm not going to reveal too much too soon. Okay. But then it led us to talking about our dreams a lot more in the last few days, and I've had crazy dreams in the last few days besides those ones.
Same. I've had crazy dreams for the last few weeks, actually.
Yeah. And Shayla said the same thing. She was like, "Dude, I've been having strange dreams. I don't know what's it about." And I kept telling them, I think something's happening, although I can't tell if it's personal or collective. I can't tell. I'm very confused on this detail about what the dreams are happening, especially as I'm hearing that you now have had strange dreams.
I will. I don't know, because I don't necessarily think that my strange dreams are connected to the. I mean, if I remember now, I kind of wish I'd been taking more notes. But they've almost all been about work.
Yeah, and I had a dream about an anxiety dream about the wedding, so it felt very personal and stress related.
Yeah.
But when I talked to Shayla about it, she very much felt like something was happening too. We just agreed that maybe our mental state, our stress and our any negativity that's existing within us is kind of clouding that judgment a little bit. And so I kind of agree with that.
Yeah. I think it might be collective for you guys. I just don't know if you want to include me on the... I mean, yeah, but I'm also not actively doing the investigating. I'm not actively investigating with you guys, but I
will say that I don't think this has to do with any recent investigations. I think it has to do with something coming up.
Okay. Interesting.
I think it's something coming, not something we've done.
Okay. Cool.
So, I don't know.
Okay. I'll take more notes on my dreams, because they've been crazy lately. And very vivid too. That's I don't usually dream this vividly. But I've been chalking it up to stress because I'm in the middle of a move, and it's tax season.
It's springtime, I was just gonna say, and with spring comes a different feel, a different vibe, a different version of stressors. But I will point out that we did have that blood moon eclipse the other day, or last week, and so I
missed harmonic convergence too.
I know, right? But there's more eclipses coming, so I really think it's we won't know what's happening, if something is happening, until after maybe those things come into fruition. And again, one thing I heard recently too was looking into the future right now, especially through these eclipses, is very uncertain. We shouldn't be looking too far forward anyways, because we're not going to see anything clearly. And so I heeded that advice, because I was like, well, the more I try, the more I feel like I'm failing rather than succeeding. So I don't feel like trying too hard is the route to take. But I had just gotten off the phone with Cheyenne and Shayla an hour ago, And we were talking about these dreams, talking about all the stuff that me and Cheyenne had been talking about. And I asked Shayla some questions. And basically, like, Shayla had kind of agreed that, like, there might be a spiritual test coming. At least for me. I know that for certain. For them, I don't know where they're at with that. But then, not 30 minutes after that, I get a message from this man. And again, nothing has come up of this, so if he hears it, you're gonna hear it, but whatever. He asked me to collab in regards to shufflemancy, but when I looked at his profile, I was a little bit on guard about who this man was and what he was doing and what kind of vein he exists in. And first of all, I don't want to be too judgmental, but the second thing is, like, what I saw leads me to believe certain things, and, like, it made me question, like, I guess this is the question I have, is, like, maybe my integrity will be tested here, because if I do the interview with him and I don't like kind of the guy he is or the stuff he spouts, who am I to be the one who comes on and goes, but you're wrong, or whatever, like, you know, and because does it serve me well to be combatant like that? Or does it serve me better to have the conversation or the collab that he wants and see what comes of it? Because again, I'm very uncertain about this situation. It's very new, obviously, like literally 30 minutes ago this all happened. But I texted Shayla and Shannon and I was like, I think this is the test, because he's giving me alarm bells that maybe somewhere I'm going to be questioned about something in my integrity or in my honor or my honesty or what I say. And even if we were to collab, I'm not going to be any less truthful than I am with my friend Katie. Like,
yeah,
that's my value system. But to be in that environment is the question, I guess.
If it's safe, don't put your safety.
Right.
You know, if it's safe and you think that you can constructively, if you think that it's possible to have a constructive conversation, like in which you guys can both ask questions of each other and both answer honestly, like, you might end up getting something out of it. Because as my mother always liked to say, a broken clock's right twice a day. Like,
well, I guess what I'm saying is that I can't confirm my suspicions, so until I can, I don't know. And
yeah.
I don't think that that's also a reason to say no to somebody, technically speaking, because I don't know. Like,
and he knows, like, if he listens to the podcast and he's reaching out to you, like, if he's been on your social media, if he's listened to the podcast, then he knows who you are, and he still thinks he'll get something out of it. So,
yeah,
you know.
I guess we'll see. But it led to this weird string of events, and I thought, like, oh my god, like, it feels paranormal because I don't know how this, like, is coming to be in such a way. But regardless of all of that, the dreams have been wild. And yeah, I guess I will just say, I wonder if our audiences have input on dreams right now, like what you're experiencing in the dream realms, because I'd like to know if something collectively is happening, or if I should just take it personal.
Yeah, is everybody's dreams crazy, or are we just both in particularly stressful moments in our life?
I just, like, I don't know. Like, I'm hard pressed to say either way right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm totally comfortable with being like, we're both just really fucking stressed out. But if you and, like, if Shayla and Cheyenne are like, maybe it's collective, that would be awesome. And, like, I just wanted everything to be paranormal. There was this, okay, we had this, no, this is great. Like, there was this table that was, they were sitting next to, there's like a big table of like 6 guys, right? That were sitting there, that sit next to like this little tiny tube top. Okay. And there was this one, we don't know how it happened. Like, okay, you'll remember, we might remember the term, but there was like a napkin that was just like on a chair that was like not being used, but the napkin had been used. Like, clearly the napkin had been used, but like everybody at the table had their napkins on their laps. And we were like we were like, what is this? Where did this napkin just like appear from? Like, what is it called when like shit just like appears out of nowhere?
Oh, I don't remember, but I know what you're talking about. It's like when things appear or disappear from the ether and then they come back or place somewhere else or something.
Exactly. It was literally like we were like, what the fuck? Everybody's got their napkins. Did you give them another? No, I didn't give them. They didn't ask me for, like, they were like, we were literally like, I don't know what the fuck is happening right now. I was like, it just appeared from the ether. Like, it was fucking, and then like after like a couple minutes, I looked over at the table next to them and the napkin was missing off of like the table next to them. And I was like, I wanted to be paranormal so bad. He's just a rich asshole.
That is
just grabbed a napkin off a different fucking table. Like,
oh my god, how rude, but also so funny.
So funny. We were both like, me and Chris were like, oh my god, maybe it's a ghost napkin. Like maybe it's a fucking blah blah blah. And Chris was like, that'd be awesome. Yeah. Like,
hell yeah. I know. Those are the hardest ones to trace too, because if you're like a forgetful person like I am, I'm like, I don't know how it got there. And I'm not going to pretend that it was paranormal because I swear to God, I don't remember anything about that.
Yeah. No, I was like, I remember I didn't do anything. And like, I was like, it's paranormal. Then I like looked over and saw the napkin missing on P219. And I was like, oh, no, he's just a rich a-hole. That's what it is. And Chris was like, that should always be our first assumption. And I was like, I usually is. I just wanted it for once. I wanted it to not be that.
I love that. Well, that was all really. It's kind of anticlimactic because I guess things haven't done anything, but I'm still like on the edge of my seat with all of it. So we'll see. I guess if I have another update, I will definitely keep you guys in the loop. Yeah. So, with that, let's talk about Operation High Jump.
I love this one. So there's not like a lot to tell about like the actual, like, it was a military expedition that took place at the end of 1946. I think they left on December. I have the date written down somewhere. But it's like Northwind departs from Norfolk, Virginia on December 12th, 1946, and everybody was back by March 9th, 1947. It was supposed to last for like six to 8 months longer. It was 4,700 men, 13 ships, including aircraft carrier, sub, and 2 icebreakers. There was 19 planes and 4 helicopters, copious amounts of scientists. The objectives technically were to 1, train personnel and test material in frigid zones. 2, consolidate and extend American sovereignty over the largest practical area of the Antarctic. Sovereignty. Like, at least there were, like, people living there, but, like...
Who's to say that America needed to be there? But I guess, also, like, as the response to the Nazis, it's like, I guess they were going to do that.
If the Nazis were still there. I mean, there was definitely, like, German expeditions to the Antarctica in the 30s. Like, that was for sure a thing. But also, like, maybe there were people there, because we're going to get into that. Okay. The third objective was to determine feasibility of establishing and maintaining bases in the Antarctic and to investigate possible base sites. 4, develop techniques for establishing and maintaining air bases in ice with special attention to the applicability in Greenland, which makes sense because the Cold War was like just starting. 5, amplify existing knowledge of hydrographic, geographic, meteorological, geological, and electromagnetic conditions in the area. Right, because it's a pole. It's not just because they were like, ooh, spoogly shit. Because it's a pole and there's an electromagnetic force near the poles. That's why most people don't fly directly over the North Pole. There's a lot of, like, interference. Or it's the entrance to the hollow earth, just like at the South Pole. We're going to get into it. Don't worry, guys. So there was a few people. There was a ton of ships. There was 3 different groups to the expedition. I'm not actually going to fucking read all these. The submarine couldn't make it through the ice, so they towed it back. And... yeah, there was one of the expeditions, I think one of the eastern or the western groups, like, there was a plane crash. Some people survived, some people didn't. They found a brackish lake going over the continent, which is Wild. In like the middle. Any other fucking big any other major points that I'm missing? Like that was they
I
went
feel like with Operation High Jump, it's something you can Google very easily and learn very quickly what they intended.
yeah.
So if you're like mad that we didn't tell you all the details, here's the thing. Google it because we're gonna get into the paranormal shit and the conspiracy
Yeah.
about it. And
Yeah.
that's our bread and butter right now. So
I mean they got hella pictures, like the part of it was also like to like take pictures of the coastline, but there's so much information all over the place, like about like what they were doing. I couldn't even understand half the shit. I was on like a oh god, I don't even remember. I was on some military website and they were like really getting into it, like telling me all the names of the ships. And I was like, I don't need this information.
yeah.
How were they met with resistance? Because like one podcast I've listened to about it has been like, they were like met with resistance. And I was like, what the fuck is down in Antarctica?
That's the biggest rumor I feel like I saw and heard about too, was that they were met with resistance. And they like, said the conspiracy is like, was it the Germans, the Nazis that had been there before, or was it something else?
Yes. Like I'm personally super into the Hollow Earth theory. But also like the simplest explanation is usually the one that's correct. Like the Germans setting up a base down there in like 38 and then just being down there for 9 years, like that checks out. Like that seems pretty reasonable. World War II had just ended like a year and a half before. I mean, like, you know, like Japanese soldiers were so like were all over the Pacific, you know, and like didn't hear about the war ending for years and years. Like you would hear about like people would bring the Japanese soldiers home like in the 50s and stuff like that, and they'd be like throwing parades and shit like that because they had been out serving their country for an extended period of time. Like that might totally be a thing.
That, and I feel like the Germans may have had the same goal that America did, like inside the war, which is like, if we set up a base here, maybe we're closer to the enemy and doing something more strategic and malicious here. And I think like that makes sense as an explanation for why they would have stayed, because they would have not wanted to give up that land or that strategic move. Although, like, in the end, I don't think it is a strategic move because of how frigid and crazy the conditions are.
It's unless there's something at the poles that you can control. Like, unless the poles are entrances to the Hollow Earth, and, like, there's people, like, what if there's fucking people, or the alien, or the critters, is that what they call them in West Virginia? The critters? Because I think this ties in with the cave systems.
Yeah.
And, like, the under... like cavernous, I think I go with the more like Hollow Earth, like cavernous Hollow Earth, and like there's like theories of the Hollow Earth where there's like there's a sun inside the Earth, and I'm like, that where's the space for that? Like I don't know how big the I don't know how big the I don't remember how big the circumference of the Earth is.
But like considering how many millions of people exist on this world now, there might not be that much room for a literal star inside
the planet,
literal Earth. Seems a little ridiculous.
That's so awful. Yeah, no, it's like no, it seems insane. But the molten, like, okay, so the core is supposed to be like hot, molten hot iron, like, well, that creating like vacuous spots where like you can have these crazy cave systems, like the Mammoth Cave system, on our continent, or like that. I don't know what the cave system's called in Vietnam, but you hear about like the Vietnam vets like going into the I feel like the molten like I feel like both things can be like it can be hollow on the inside and also still have like the iron molten core. Like I think that it might not be a direct through line, like, but there's a major entrance at the magnetic north and south.
Interesting.
That like you can get into parts of it around it.
It's funny to me because I'm going with the zaliens theory here, not even Hollow Earth. Like, not that like Hollow Earth is a knock. It's just that it's like,
well, there's something to be said for the aliens because guess what was 4 months after everybody came back? Roswell.
Yeah. But okay, this is the point I was going to make earlier about the Germans, was that Hitler was known for being an occultist.
Yeah.
So like
he was a hollow earther, which made me question my stance on being a hollow earther. But again, a broken clock is right twice a day. Like, I'm not saying he was always right, but this is something where I'm like, we might agree on this one.
Well, it's hard to know what he knew and what came of what he knew is my thing. And also there's like a history of the American leaders also having occultist ties.
Yeah.
So there's no telling what they believed or didn't believe, but I guess what's more important is what they did and didn't do. Mm-hmm. And the fact to me that's horrible about this is that the Americans were like, American sovereignty on Antarctic land, and it's like, who the fuck are you? Who the
Little
fuck
America
are you?
4. That was what they called the place where they were going. Little America 4, because there were already 3 other ones in different parts. I was like, this is some white nonsense if I ever heard it.
It is. And I think that's why I'm hesitant to lean towards occultist visions here, because truthfully, when the man goes and settles, he will lie about what happened, and because his perspective is skewed by a colonization, and when colonization skews your viewpoint, there's no telling what could come of that. So it's hard to be like, okay, I'm from a very cold place, at least in the winter, and it used to be colder. Like, it used to be way more frigid in the winter time. But when the winter does come, it is a lot harder to do literally anything. Mm-hmm. And it is spooky. Like, the winter, the blanket of snow over everything, it's quiet, it's dark. And somehow the mysterious thrives in that. But the other thing that I acknowledge about wintertime too is that it's the quietness that is a restfulness. And so it's hard for me to really believe that, like, they encountered something so active. I would rather think that maybe they woke something up and the things didn't go as intended, like, because that thing woke up. And whatever woke up, I also don't think stayed there, because how could you if humans are insistent on colonization?
Yeah. I mean, well, because there's a lot of sleet and snow and ice, and like, it's real easy to get lost in that kind of a weather. Like, there was, I mean, I remember reading a story about, like, one of the plane, I think the plane crash that I mentioned, like, was because they couldn't there was, like, lots of snow, and the sun was reflecting, because the sun was, during this particular expedition, the sun had not set, like, the entire time. There was no darkness ever. And that, like, it was reflecting off of the snow and the ice in the air. And so, like, directional blindness, I think, is what it's called. And that's when you're in the ocean.
That's a very different feeling, the sunniness of the snow reflection, than the darkness I was describing, because we get a full day here, so you get light and dark. And here, like, in a regular place in America, like, when the sun is shining on the snow, you do get that, like, a little bit, it's more ethereal, and it's more positive. It's less spooky. It's less disorienting than it is just, like, kind of, like, annoying. All that said, the one thing that I found interesting in my research of this is that in 2018, there was an energy emittance off of the Antarctic that was irregular. Had been emitting, I'll have to look it up, but it had been emitting this energy that was unlike they'd ever seen before in 2018.
I wish I'd seen that. That's
it was
wild.
Part of the Ancient Aliens documentary, and they were like, yeah, something weird happened in 2018 over here. I thought that was more interesting, because I was like, fast forward all these fucking years, and they're still trying to figure out what the fuck is going on with this pole.
Yeah.
And I guess, like, it leads me to think that, there might be something different there than we fully understand as an American public.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take away from the fact that these men can lie and say whatever they want to underneath the guise of the military and executive orders, like, you know? So I guess that's why conspiracies are so hard to talk about, because it's like, well, what kind of bullshit are you going to feed into? And it's like hard to say. I wasn't in Antarctica myself witnessing aliens, so I don't know.
I don't know. But that would be sick. That would be sick if we were witnessing aliens.
Yeah. It would be sick. It would, but it also wouldn't be sick, because here's the thing that I think too is like, what did the aliens stay around for these people, and like, did they get what they wanted out of it? Because if they did, we might be in some trouble here. You know what I mean? Like, we might
just
be
like alien base at the poles. Like, it's like, wait, because it's so remote. Like, they have their high speed tech that can get them through light years worth of distance without, you know, harming them, or without taking forever. So like, maybe the remoteness is totally fine for aliens, because the remote, that like, that's the thing. What the fuck were I've also heard that the Germans were looking for Atlantis, and that's like one of the things that they were like doing down there.
I think I saw in Ancient Aliens too, they found a crystal city, like made of crystals, and it reminds me of the Godzilla and Kong movie, where they go underneath and they find the indigenous population who are moving crystals in sort of, it's Hollow Earth, but it's kind of another realm. It's because they go through portals to get there, so it's not like directly Hollow Earth, but they call it Hollow Earth. I don't really get it.
You can, well, okay, hold on a sec. But maybe there is, because you're talking about a portal, which is interesting, because it reminds me of the case of the Green Children of Woolpit in England. There were these kids that like literally came out of like a hole in the ground, but also like they traveled through like this crazy river or something to get from St. Martin's Land, is where they said they were from, over to Woolpit, like, but through the earth, like, and then they were green. And the brother died. The brother couldn't eat. They wouldn't eat anything that they had to offer except for fava beans. Like, after like a few days, they were like, these beans, and they ate fava beans.
So fucking weird. I've never heard that before.
The brother dies within a year, and the sister like ends up eating more and adjusting, and like loses her green skin at some point. But yeah, that just reminded me of that case from England. And I forget if it's I think it's like the 1800s or something. Weird. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, like the premise of the Godzilla thing, they were warning people on Earth to fulfill a prophecy, and the prophecy is that this little girl, who was lost from her indigenous tribe on Skull Island, where King Kong was, she's supposed to like meet Mothra, and Mothra is supposed to get Kong and Godzilla to work together to defeat this other ape that's like the evil ape, the one that wants to destroy Earth. And so that's kind of what happens, is like she goes up to Mothra and she's like, hey Mothra, we need help. But the whole thing that like exists around this indigenous community is that they can move things from inside the Earth to send signals, but also to do some sort of anti-gravity work. And it reminded me of that, because I was like, it feels like it's like comes straight from that, like where it's like there's some mysterium going on and we attribute it to ancient technologies that are beyond what we can even think of these days.
I did research on something like this. Oh my god. Because like you think about like the ancient technologies, like how do we build the pyramids, blah, blah, blah. Acoustic levitation is what it's fucking called. And you can like, because you can lift things with how you do this. Did I send you this article? I meant to. It's wild, because it like you can lift crazy objects with like but it has to do with hertz, which we've been talking about. Like you can like create frequencies with audio that like can lift up boulders and shit like that. Like just like one person could like wave some like fucking the right kind of things around, and then like move the 3-ton bricks that the pyramids were built out of, you know? Like,
Yeah.
um,
I've been also recently watching Project Stargate, like the original sci-fi series from 1997. Do you remember
wait,
that?
what?
Yeah,
No?
so it's like, or I guess it's just called Stargate SG-1. It's not Project Stargate. It's Stargate
Okay.
SG-1, and it's this fucking. It comes from the Stargate though, like thing, because it's about basically this portal that the government has, and you can travel to any other world, and they really say it's off planet. And they start doing, and they realize that there's an entity that means to colonize planets, including Earth, and so they do these reconnaissance missions to essentially find out information on all these other planets to see what's happening with these other realms, because they haven't actually traveled through these portals in a long ass time, like in our Earth's time, since like the ancient Egyptians kind of thing. And so yeah, it's like, it's an interesting premise because it takes a lot of what we know as fact today and then turns it into something more sci-fi and goes like, oh, what could happen. And I'm not too far into the series at all, but it's interesting because it's like there's so many ways that we could be traveling, not only interplanetary, but like other realms that may be like just like adjacent to Earth itself, like Hollow Earth, in my opinion. Because I truly think, and again, like, it's all conspiracy, so it's not like I'm saying this is the gospel truth, but I think that if Hollow Earth does exist, it is like the Godzilla movies, and that there's a portal there, and I don't think it actually has anything to do with our Earth as it sits right now.
Interesting.
I think it's like you get transported to a Hollow Earth-like realm.
I think I'm down with the Hollow Earth. I think it's real. Whether or not there's people there, I would love that. I would love it if there's people or aliens that are living in the Hollow Earth. But at the very least, it's more like, maybe my opinion is more like cavernous Earth. Like there's entrances at the North and South poles, but then also like these cave systems that we see all around the world are also entrances to the
Or
Hollow
just
Earth.
evidence of those things being created too. Yeah.
Yes, or evidence of those things.
Well, and it reminds me of too, like the recent disclosure of like how they transformed UFO into UAP, which is basically to include water. So like crafts coming from water, and who's to say what fucking exists underwater, like cave systems
I've
and shit
seen
like that.
a USO. I have seen an unidentified submersible object. My mom, my gammy, and I all fucking saw it on March 7th, 2023. You guys, I can't find any information on the internet about this. No tweets, no fucking next door, nothing. And I seen people when we were driving home, there were people on Noriega fucking taking pictures. My gammy fucking rolled down the window and was like, "Do you know what that is?" to somebody who was taking a picture, and he was like, "I don't know."
That's insane to me too. I've told you this before, but the fact that it's in San Fran fucking Cisco, a populated
Ocean Beach.
place. Yeah, that's crazy. That's like, how could there not be more?
It was scrubbed. I swear to God, it was fucking scrubbed or something. Because I have looked so many times, and I still have the date memorized to this day.
Yeah. I mean, I will never forget the date that I saw the UFO in the sky. So,
Also,
and we
it was
were
Monsters
near the
birthday.
lake.
There's which one is the one? It's not the gimbal. There's a couple of videos that you're like see shit underwater too, like that are like military grade. Like this is going in and out of fucking water and like blah 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 because they have some crazy tech that it's ain't no thing. Chicken wing.
Well, after conspiratorially speaking like this, what do you think the implications are if they did find something? You're like, hell if I know. It really feels like that with this disclosure shit, honestly.
They left hella early. They did not stick around, so they got their asses handed to them if they did find shit down there. If it was the Nazis still down there, if it was the Hollow Earth and the Nazis teamed up, if it was aliens and the Nazis teamed up, like America got schooled.
Yeah.
And
it reminds me of the ending of Project Stargate, which I was told by John Tenney that the reason they stopped is because both the Russian spies and the American spies ran into an entity that told them they could not do this anymore.
Oh, like the actual Project Stargate, like the actual psychic program? Oh, that's fascinating.
That not only did it work, but that they ran into something collectively, like the Russians and the Americans, and this entity was like, stop it. And that's how it ended. At least that's what John Tenney told me. And I tend to believe what he says. I'm not gonna.
We're dear friend of the pod, John Tenney.
Oh my God. And he doesn't listen.
That's the joke. One cigarette at a fucking conference does not make you close personal friend, John Tenney. But we stand.
It's funny because we can barely get anybody to listen to this podcast, but least of all John Tenney.
This is exactly what he was asking for. This was exactly the thing. I love that. I've never, in all of my years of looking into Project Stargate, I've never come across that. It was always just like, the government was like, we're done funneling money for the psychic research program. It can't be weaponized. We're done.
See, that's where I disagree, though, is like with that final, like now knowing what I know from John Tenney, like I feel like what it really was these particular psychics were like, no, we're not doing it. But it doesn't mean that they didn't funnel money to figure it out later. Because they knew that it could happen. So why not keep trying? Because the America will never stop trying to perpetuate war and colonization.
No.
We are...
The School of the Americas. Guys, look up the School of the Americas. It's a school in Georgia that teaches us how to torture. It goes directly against the Geneva Convention, but okay, whatever.
Dude, it's like the nefariousness never ends. And so for me, it's like, I totally believe if they found something, they could have found something down there. And they also could have been stopped by it. But it doesn't mean that they couldn't have tried to go back with power.
Yeah. Well, they set up a base in the fucking, I forget, Camp something or other. There's a base that got set up in the Antarctica.
Yeah, they're working down there. Like, they're still down there. Yeah.
They're still down there.
I just don't think that they're fucking with alien technology as much as we think.
I would love that, but yeah, I don't think so either.
No, I think it has more to do with, like, Earth shit. But, like, I think that's kind of how the paranormal works sometimes, though, is it will show you a snippet, and then you don't get to see any more. But it doesn't mean that what came from that snippet wasn't effective in some way. And I do think that because of all this recent disclosure shit with aliens and yada, 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 I do think that the American public or the American empire and those who control its dealings are trying harder more than ever now to harness that weapon that they are seeking. Because they want total domination. They want global power. I mean, I don't know if you listened to the last episode yet, but I was talking to Courtney Block about...
I haven't yet.
I was talking to her about, like, it's not that I think that the paranormal or the spiritual world will help us fight a war, like there's some monster that will come from the ocean and start doing things. I think it's actually a lot more subversive or just, like... kind of like, that's what I kind of mean. I can't think of another word, but like subversive than that. It's like whatever power you find in that spiritual realm helps control the power of the minds of the American public and control weaponry and how we come to terms with new technologies. The fact that Courtney Block had just even brought up, like, hey, look at this little tidbit of information I found in a book one time is wild to me. Yeah, because it's like, what's to say of the now times then? Because there's so much new technology being developed every fucking day, and like she said, weirdness has always had a way of popping up for us, and that weirdness will always be there. And so, like, it's just new ways the paranormal comes up, and that's why I think disclosure is such a big deal these days. Not that I think like anything really weird is going to happen, like too weird. It's just, there's going to be a pattern of weirdness until we publicly have that access to all that technology.
Yeah. Like, how have so many of these people stayed quiet for so long? You know what I mean? Like, until it's all...
Well, Dr. Stephen Greer has an argument that they're being silenced, meaning that, like, their lives are being threatened.
Yeah.
Like, you would stay silent if you and your family's lives were threatened.
That's true.
I don't know. That's what he says. He also says there's like a secret cabal, but like I don't fucking know.
Oh, I don't doubt the secret cabal. Like,
I don't
for
doubt
sure.
that for a second, because I don't doubt that men in power want to stay in power. I don't.
Also, like, we know that the Bilderberg Group exists and that Bohemian Grove is an actual fucking thing. So, like, if all of these people from all of these titans of industry from, okay, Bohemian Grove is American specific. We actually probably should do an episode on this. Do you know what Bohemian Grove is? Okay, so it's like this like week-long retreat, but it's like all of the major like oil tycoons, fucking government people, like everybody. Like, there's a picture of like Reagan, Bush, and Nixon, like the first Bush, HW, at Bohemian Grove, like in a photograph together. Like, these are important people from America, specifically is Bohemian Grove. It's actually like 70 miles away from me. And then the Bilderberg Group is like a lot of bankers. It's a lot more finance based from what I've heard, but and they publish who goes. Like, the Bilderberg Group will like announce who's going and stuff like that, and like what they're doing. I think probably not as much as they say, but
Right.
But like, these things, we know that these things exist that are literally just about men in power meeting together to, I mean, let's be real, make the rules of the world.
Yeah. And I think now that we have like globalization as like a concept, I think it's like even more nefarious because we don't know who the players could be. We have like obvious players, like from public figures we might know about, but then there are not obvious players. It makes me think of like the Koch brothers, how like everybody knows who the president is and who all these administrators are, but when you say the Koch brothers, how many people know who the fuck they are?
Oh, they actually run the Libertarian Party. They're actually in charge of the Libertarian Party. They have all the fucking money.
If it's like the Koch brothers are going to this thing, there's no one stopping them.
Yeah.
If Elon Musk is doing this thing, no one's fucking stopping him.
Yeah.
Because he has so much money to tell anybody he wants what to do.
Yeah.
And people will fucking do it. Like, he has his fucking crony in office doing exactly what he wants. Yeah, dude. This has been a wild episode. It's hilarious. This can end. Okay.
This can end. We can talk about this over FaceTime. It's fine.
Thank you for listening to this wild episode of Files from the Other Side. You can find us on Instagram at Files from the Other Side. Share this podcast if you like it, and don't forget to subscribe.
And we'll see you on the other side.
Bangin'. Let's go.
That was great.